speaking of motor skills, these are the actual ones that OTs are looking for. So stabilizing is obviously holding your body straight and being able to stabilize the whole way so that if you're sitting in a chair or if you're standing up, you're able to adjust your balance the way that you need to. You are aligning your whole body standing, or when you're sitting, you know, if you have to lean over, is your head following the way that it is, or is it tilting, which then throws you off balance? Are you able to reach? That's typically from your shoulders, but are you able to reach to a target? You know, not just reaching out and missing exactly what you're looking for. Bending, that's from your waist. Gripping, can you grip and know? So the next one is manipulate. So can you grip something and then be able to manipulate it or move it around? Can you coordinate both sides of your body or coordinate to do two different things? Like, for example, holding your paper with one hand and writing with the other. Or when you're climbing a tree, can you coordinate holding with one hand and reaching to the next branch up with the next? Moving is just very simple, but can you know exactly where you're going and project yourself in that direction? It's the same kind of thing with target accuracy when you're reaching. Can you move towards the target? Can you lift something? And then later on we have transport it. So can you lift? Can you walk? And can you transport that object? So many times people who are carrying something then lose their balance. So are you able to do those things?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Calibrate is when you are gripping something like a water bottle. Are you holding it so tight that the water's coming out of the top or spilling over? Or if you're opening a container in the kitchen and you have to rip it open, is all the ingredients flying out because you are not able to hold it with the correct or calibrate it correctly. Slow would be, are you really jerky or can you just complete one motor task fluidly? Endurance and pacing kind of go hand in hand. So do you have enough endurance to make it to the end of whatever your task is? Or once you climb that tree, are you stuck at the top because you're so exhausted that you can't get back down?
When we call that old age.
We might. Although I don't think I'm old and I don't have that much endurance, so I'm not sure.
Yes.
And pacing yourself, do you do things really quickly and then really slowly to get to the end? Or are you able to kind of go straight along throughout the entire task? And all of these take a lot of practice. But so when we're thinking about, you know, we get so many fine motor versus gross motor, but they're all really interconnected with these motor skills here. So some examples, if you go to the next slide, you can see kind of how nature can cater to these.
There we go.
All right. So this is all my kiddos. And here's how we are. They're always my example and they know it. And I always ask them beforehand if that's okay. But here we are. So you can see the picture on the left is my son who's climbing up a rocky wall. And you know, he stopped to pose. But when he stopped to pose, he had to align his body and look how his feet are facing one direction, but then he turns his torso in the other direction. So that's a skill right within itself. Or is he really wobbly and has to turn himself that whole way around? So even these really simple things, you're working on your motor skills in that respect. And he's practicing so well outside. This next picture, my little guy who's, he's got flowers right next to him and he was trying so hard not to pull them all off, all the petals off. And then he, poor sweet thing, he had a little moth in his hand first, which unfortunately met his demise in that moment. But he was trying to feed him back to so that he could get all the pollen he needed from the flowers. But in that moment, right, the calibration of that grasp so that he wasn't smushing the moth and was holding right next to those flower petals, the delicacy of that moment. Those are the same types of things that carry directly over into holding a pencil and having it not break in your hand, or the amount of pressure that it takes to write on a piece of paper. You know, if you're outside and you're picking up acorns, which are harder, versus you're picking off these little petals of a flower. Those are the same exact skills there. The next one is my 5-year-old right after he learned to ride a bike. And, when we're thinking about environments, look at the bumpy road that he's on in that situation. So you have to be able to align your body very differently and stabilize your body there differently than if you're riding on a road. So these are skills that are translatable because the same thing happens. If you are in your own home and you're switching over floors, you're going upstairs or you're walking into the kitchen, which feels different. Those are the same skills. So you can take those therapy goals right outside. The next one is my 2 boys who decided they were going to dig this nice deep trench. We had just actually finished reading the book Holes, and they were just all over it in my backyard.
I think every boy in their life has to dig a hole, at least one. Yes.
They made little benches in it and everything, and they were waiting for rain to come, thinking they were going to have a pool. And, I was like, oh, buddy, you know how hard it's going to have to rain for that to stay? That's okay. It kept them very busy for a very long time. But
exactly. Yes.
Right? And they were carrying over the literature that we had just read. So just within that, it was a great, that's carrying over the homeschool goals. But therapy-wise, gripping that shovel and all of that upper body strength, again, that stabilization through their core and their shoulders. So this goes right along with the strengthening. For my son, who I was talking about his vision, being able to keep those lines exactly straight. Those are the eye muscles that we were, that's the same thing as far as calibration goes. So all of those, just by being outside. So I was not specifically saying, hey, go climb up those rocks, because I really want to check how you can align and stabilize and reach. But instead, I put him outside and he was naturally doing it on his own.
That is a great point, that, we can get so caught in the mechanics. And yet when you're having fun, all these things come together just in natural environments. And that's awesome. I love that.
So much when I talk to families and I'm talking about, yes, this is the science of it, right? So you're learning all of the specific motor skills that we look for, which goes, again, right along with anatomy and with kinesiology. And even with physiology. So yes, you're learning the science of it, but you are the artist who gets to carry it over within your children, and just putting them in that environment and really help them to carry over these skills that they're working on in therapy, or carry over the skills that you're working on specifically in your, home exercise program or whatever. Putting them outside and they're naturally doing it.